Call me Ace. Welcome to This is the first video in a series I plan on doing, where we'll go over difficulty in different video games, where they succeed, where they could do better, and what I think makes good difficulty. Here's my qualifications, in case you need me to justify my opinions. Ultrakill has 5 difficulties, with a 6th set to release alongside the game's 1.0 update. As for the 5 that are out, there are 2 easy modes, a normal mode recommended for first-time players, and 2 harder modes. I have a lot to talk about with the harder modes, but I want to cover harmless and lenient first. I've seen a few different ways of tackling easy modes in my day, and most of them boil down to either numerical changes or removing features. Both of these options suck hard. Changing damage and health values doesn't make games any easier, it just makes them less punishing, and that's a big difference. A game can only give you 1 hit point and have no checkpoints and still be easy. It would just be really fucking annoying. In the same way, a game can be really forgiving while also having unavoidable damage, which is really fucking annoying. Removing features when you lower the difficulty is like Helldivers having certain encounters only appear on the hardest difficulty, or Hollow Knight Silksong having a boss exclusive to Steel Soul mode, though that is admittedly not as big a deal, since Steel Soul is more like a New Game Plus. If you know about it, it makes you feel like you're missing out, and for the community, it makes seeing other people play on lower difficulties hard to stomach because they're missing out on a bunch of cool stuff. Ultrakill does none of this. Kind of. We'll get to it. The way it handles easy modes is pretty simple, but in a way that works. It just makes enemies really slow. This sounds lame, right? It sounds like a band-aid fix, just like lowering damage, but it works because in one simple change, enemies are easier to hit, attacks are easier to dodge, and bullets are easier to parry. Both difficulties do take away hard damage, but in this case I think it works because of 2 things. Firstly, it's not only doing that. There's a bunch of other ways these modes are made easier. A good easy mode is less difficult and less punishing, and the removal of hard damage is a big part in Harmless and Lenient's execution of that. Secondly, hard damage isn't really a core mechanic. It solely exists to rule out certain easier ways to play, which doesn't apply to the easy modes made for people who want to play the easy way. So, what have we learned so far? Well, speed makes a lot of difference in difficulty. So how do we apply that? Do we just crank up the speed for every harder difficulty? Seems easy enough. No, that's a terrible idea. You don't want Ultrakill Must Die to look like this, do you? No, we need something with a bit more care put into it. Turn up the speed on a few things, of course, bullets and fodder enemies mainly, but we should also focus on actually designing harder enemies. Take an attack and see how you can turn it up a notch. Now the Cerberus dash twice in a row. Now the street cleaners can point their weapon upwards. And if we have to, we'll even add new attacks. So, new attacks are an interesting beast. You might recall me talking about how locking features behind certain difficulties is bad. Isn't that what they're doing here? Well, no, it's not that simple. New attacks are ways to expand upon enemies that already exist. They're not adding a new sticky note to the wall, they're scribbling on one of them a bit more. When you want to make a chess game more intense, you don't add a new piece, you add a time limit or touch move, something that makes things more stressful but doesn't fundamentally change anything. And that is something Ultrakill excels at. Another thing that specifically Ultrakill's brutal difficulty does is increase bosses' health. This would serve only to make the fights more tedious, but thanks to the other changes the difficulty makes to these bosses, the increased health is essential to the experience. It's a way to make sure experienced players don't blast their way through without engaging with the actual interesting parts of the fight. The combat is an integral piece of the game, and this is the game's way of forcing you to appreciate it. However, that brings me to the one flaw in this near-perfect display of difficulty. Ultrakill's combat is a core piece of its gameplay, and the various difficulties allow people of all skill levels to appreciate it. However, movement is also a core piece of Ultrakill's gameplay, and the difficulty options change nothing about it. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying choosing a difficulty should affect how V1 moves. That could not be further from what I want. I'm saying that a few minor tweaks to levels could make platforming more challenging for higher difficulties. I know combat makes up 80 to 90% of Ultrakill's challenge, but there are enough sections focused primarily on movement that I think it's worth exploring the idea of altering those sections for each difficulty. Ultrakill is a movement shooter, after all. So, overall, Ultrakill is a great example of what good difficulty looks like in gaming, with only one small flaw that almost every other game with difficulty options also has, so I can't exactly blame it. Difficulty options almost always seem to focus on combat, and that's not a horrible problem, but it is kinda embarrassing that a Hollow Knight mod has you all beat. Speaking of which, if you want to see me continue this series and talk about the best Hollow Knight mod ever made, subscribe, and be patient. I have other things I'll probably want to make first.